Here.
Mr. Stein?
Here.
Mr. Hamburg, Mr. Dorschel, and Mr. Kugel are excused.
Item number 3, approval of the minutes from January 26. Is there a motion for approval?
Approval.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Edits, comments, revisions? Sonia?
One from Chris Hamburg, who's not here tonight, on page 2. Third paragraph in the 6-inch needs to be changed to 3.6 inch.
Okay. Any further edits, revisions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, minutes are carried. Appearances, we'll call these up at the appropriate time, right? On the agenda, seeing none. There's no unfinished business. New business, public hearing on request by Kevin Wilson, Broadway Hotel Partners LLC, represented by Brad Koning, Schlufer Architects, for approval of a 2-lot certified survey map, CSM, to divide the 128,914 square foot lot at 101 West Broadway into 2 lots. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brad Koning of Schulfer Architects. I'm here representing both Broadway Hotel Partners LLC and Steve Dorn. They are requesting that the lot at 101 West Broadway be divided into 2 lots per the CSM. And basically that's for the development 5,000 square foot retail building that was approved in the January 26th Plan Commission meeting and a subsequent in for final plan approval. The lot, the newly created lot for that development is approximately 0.77 acres, predominantly on the south side of that existing lot. It does take a fairly irregular shape due to the desire to have each lot coordinate with the parking that's required for each use, essentially, and that's why you'll see that CSM line is dividing the 2 is somewhat skewed. They do have a cross-access easement in place and a shared parking agreement that will be in place as part of the final approval. And we are not moving any of the ingress or egress routes, driveways, as part of that redevelopment of the lot. So I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak on this matter? If not, if you just want to hang there for a minute, we'll move on to 6B, which is consideration of action on the request. Sonia?
So the code requires review of this application by the Public Works Committee, Plan Commission, and Council. So Public Works reviewed and approved the item on February 4th. Council had a first read on February 16th, last Monday. This would be the first and final scheduled for action reading by the Plan Commission, and then Council is tentatively scheduled for their second read on one Monday from now. Staff's recommendation is for approval because it meets the minimum lot size requirements and the requirement to have 60 foot of frontage on a dedicated street. As a condition, I recommend recording of the shared access easement to allow access to the site. And comments from Chris Hamburg said to clarify, he would recommend clarifying that shared access easement be over the entire joint driveway and not just the entrances to the site. And then a few other conditions, recording of the CSM, payment of the land dedication fee.
Okay. Any other comments from the one of the comments I thought on the condition of approval, if you were to add a shared access easement for the driveway to the sites from West Broadway to Monona Drive shall be documented, et cetera, et cetera. I think adding to Monona Drive would accomplish what Mr. Hamburg's after. But I'm wondering if we should also add another condition that there be a shared parking agreement that would be recorded and registered. Would that be recorded and registered, shared parking agreement? Just a shared parking agreement between the two properties? Make sure that, because that was important in our approval.
And you indicated that there was one, is that correct?
Yes, yes.
That there will be.
Yeah, there's one draft and will be
But just to
recorded.
put it in the conditions of approval.
I had the same note, that I thought that that's something we should do in addition, because again, if the two lots were to sell in the future or whatever, we want to ensure that both have adequate parking, so the shared agreement would make sense.
Rob, any comments? or-
Nope.
Is there a motion? Oh, go ahead. That's what you have.
Yeah, just the shared parking agreement was a condition of the zoning permit, and that it be recorded.
So it doesn't need to be in this.
I don't think so, because parking is a function of the zoning permit and the use of the buildings, and parking really is not enlisted in the code anywhere when you're doing a lot division or a CSM.
Got it. Thanks. Thank you. That's not necessary. All right. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve with the 3 staff conditions.
Did you want to modify that to say 2 Monona Drive?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When's construction start? All right. Hi, Robin. We'll move on to 6C, consideration of action on request by Robin Farrell, owner, for approval of a comprehensive signage plan for the development traced on the water at 320 West Broadway. Come on up.
Hi, all. It's been a while since I've been here. We've submitted a signage package for your approval. I believe, and we tried very hard to meet all the signage requirements, and we're not asking for any variances, as I've been explained to you by our sign company on what's allowable within the city and within the corridors and the districts that our building appears in. We're asking for 2 signs that frontage the Beltline, one for the Tresta on the water building itself, and one for the restaurant, which is Waypoint Public House. There's a ground side that we're asking for on the Broadway corridor that will feature Tresta on the water. The Waypoint Public House logo will appear on that sign, and then the other retail locations will just have name signage there. There's also a sign fronting Broadway that's for our building for Tresta, that just says Tresta on the water for the building itself, as well as signage along the boardwalk, wayfinding signage that isn't intended to be seen from the road for the retail businesses. I do anticipate that as the retail fills, the retail may want to have window signs within their retail environment for branding. But at this time, we're not asking for that.
Thank you. Sonia?
This development was approved back in 2012, and signage was a condition of approval, complete signage package, a condition of approval, required plan commission review. So the sign package includes the ground sign, 3 building signs with the 2 on the Beltline, 1 facing Broadway, and then 5 tenant blade signs for the commercial spaces. And staff recommendation is for approval with the 3 conditions listed. Just to explain the first one, that final landscaping return for final approval by staff. I have that in there because the landscape plan shows Carl Forster reed grass, which are taller, and that had come up in a previous sign application that we dealt with. So those might block the message of the sign. And then that the main building sign, Tresta, and the restaurant tenant are the only tenants that are allowed to have wall signs on the Beltline frontage, and all other commercial tenants may only use the projecting wall signs.
Thank you. Commission members? Mr. Ganser?
The project is looking pretty cool, by the way.
Thank you, I appreciate
drive
that.
by it about 8 times a day. The only thing on here that kind of jumped out at me was the two signs facing 12 and 18. Are they on two different planes?
They are on two different planes because of the roof deck.
All right.
They're actually on the same plane, but one is higher and one is lower. So if you drive by the building on the Beltline currently, where the now renting sign is, that is where the Trace Down the Water sign will appear. And then the restaurant will appear on the same plane, but higher on the top of the building. It's because of the way that the roof garden is up there. We didn't feel that the building visibility would be as good if we placed it back.
Okay, so that's the only recess, is
That's
the
right.
back wall of the
Correct.
garden.
Yep.
I was almost hoping that wasn't the case, because the relationship between the two signs on the same vertical plane, I gotta tell you, it just bugs me. All right,
We
so
played a lot with that layout, even looked at putting Trace on the other wing, but that loses a lot of visibility from the signage for the building.
yeah,
And we do
definitely.
feel that the restaurant, we're excited about the restaurant. We think the restaurant's a big draw for the building, and that's why we gave them the higher proximity placement on that sign location.
And we don't like the idea of both of them being on there.
When we
Trace, to them
designed, when we
being on
looked
the-
at it in graphic, it didn't look as good as it did in the two separate locations because of the way the usage was. So that's why they were put that way.
And traced as backlit letters, and waypoint's the same within a sign panel.
Correct.
No, it's not backlit. It's interior lit, I think. Trace does.
Oh, they're,
I think they're
oh,
interior
traced
lit,
as
I think.
interior lit channel letters.
Yeah.
Oh,
what
yes,
it
is? Yeah.
correct. I'm sorry, it
Yes.
is. Yeah, waypoint, I haven't actually
Waypoint
seen.
is backlit.
Yeah,
It's a cabinet.
I don't know, it's great. I guess if you're comfortable with them, I'd have to say, side by side, two different presentations on two different levels on the same plane. Aesthetically, I think you should reevaluate that. So we've got two different types of presentations, both on the same plane, one higher than the other. I just think there's an inconsistency there that you might be pretty disappointed with.
well, and I'm relying on our sign people to tell me what
There's the,
design-wise, signing is not my forte, honestly. I have a lot of other things I do, but signing isn't one of them.
but you're spending quite a bit of money for these signs.
Yes, I am, yeah.
There you are.
So, but I do rely on their recommendation, and we did the design and consultant with the sign company.
Otherwise, the rest of them look good. Is it my understanding that there are potentially 5 tenants that,
There would be a
You've
maximum of
indicated-
5
There's-
tenant blade signs.
Yeah, 4 retail spaces plus the restaurant.
okay, so one of those retail spaces will go without on the ground sign out front?
No, there's 4 retail space, it looks on the elevation like there's 6 doors. One of those doors is the exit from the restaurant, is an emergency exit. So it is not an exit. So there's 4 retail locations and the restaurant for a total of 5 signs on the boardwalk side.
Right, but I'm
the
saying on
ground
the
sign.
ground sign
Oh, on
out
the ground
front.
side.
On the ground sign,
No,
you
there's
have-
4, there should be 4 slots if they didn't give you the right one.
There's waypoint and then 3 slots.
There's 3 and then
That is incorrect. There should be 4 on the tenant side.
Within that same space?
Yes, within the same space.
I get this thing.
So the sign wouldn't change. He did that incorrectly.
So those tenants' plaques are going to be about 4 inches, 4.5 inches in that space,
Yeah, they're not significantly large on the ground sign.
which is gonna leave the lettering at about 2. So I would have your sign designer reevaluate that so you understand exactly what you're gonna be getting, because as soon as you get a tenant in there, they're gonna blow their stack.
We've already talked to a couple of tenants, so luckily we're well aware, and we've had a lot of dialogue with them about what their branding will be within the space, so.
But what you're getting at is their name's going to be so small.
Tiny.
Well, if there's four, I was questioning the 7-inch plaque, but now there's gonna be 4 of them, so they'll probably be about 4.5 inches apiece, and you'll end up with about 2-inch letters in there, optimistically. And, so, I just wanna make sure you understand what you're getting,
Yeah.
because that would be
What
a
we would-
concern.
And if you need us to come back, but what we'll probably end up doing, I didn't realize that the sign person had done that, is reducing the trista slightly, so they have a little more room for the 4 signs on the side.
At the risk of being overly picky, and this is really not for us, this is just in hopes that you're understanding what you're going to end up with. That slight angle on the top of the sign, I would recommend that it either be eliminated or increased, because it's so mild right now
Mild.
that it might look like a mistake.
Mistake. I will talk to them about that.
That's it for me.
For the ground sign, is that, I was given information with, I wasn't here for the approval of the project, but, there's a ginkgo thing shown in that space right there, I know. Would that ginkgo be lost? Looks like-
There is a possibility at this point that we may slightly modify that landscape plan because of the height, because how close that ground sign ends up being. Right, yeah.
Got relocated to a better
Others probably think
spot
she's
where it's
fine,
still-
but
I don't know how
the
close
story comes in
the
close.
points were.
A lot of stuff, so.
That was a different issue, but
We weren't very close, but yeah, we would,
Oh, yeah.
making the entrance look good is important to us as well, so.
We've talked about that. Yeah,
It's just absurd.
yeah. That whole section needs to be rewritten.
I would agree with
We've talked about that.
you about the size of the ground sign.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think it looks really good.
Good, thank you.
Sharon?
Yeah. So there are 2 sketches in here for the ground sign. Are we to look at one specifically over the other, or?
The only reason there are 2 different sketches was to show you at the time, when we originally started to submit this, we didn't know if Waypoint was going to do a logo on the sign or written on the sign. They have decided to do a logo, so
Okay.
it will be like the sign art is correct on the bottom.
All right. I guess I agree, and I wonder if we shouldn't see this sign redrawn, because you definitely are going to get such small lettering on there. I mean, anything below a 3-inch is just minute for anyone to be able to read at a distance, so I think that's going to be an issue for you, so I think we probably should relook at that one. On the entry signage that you have on the building itself, is there any lighting on that?
Yes, it is, it will be lit. It won't be lit internally. We're going to light it
Something
from
from the building?
behind. Right.
Okay,
It's
that'll
actually
help it.
underneath the patio, so we're going to directionalize the light under the patio to backlight it, not intending to completely read it, but to provide a visual entrance to the
Okay.
building at night.
Okay, that'll help that. That looks nice.
Yeah.
That'll look cool.
Yeah. Then on the side of the building, towards the belt line, I have to agree, it would be very unusual, I think, for us to agree to 2 different signs and 2 different locations on one side like that. Typically, we'd want them in line, or at least in one area, and some sort of, or a similar type of construction. These 2 seem very different, very foreign from each other, and I actually think when you're driving past on the belt line, difficult to read because of the 2 locations. If there was grouped somehow, and whichever one you want to be bigger is there and the other one's below it, to me, would just make a lot more logical sense that you could see it and read it at one time as you're driving past. So I think that one needs work also. I couldn't agree or vote amicably on what I see here. The blade signs, I think, look nice, and I think the general gist of what you have is nice overall. I think it just needs a little bit of tweaking.
Well, and the other reason that we did them at different heights, they're different materials. So physically from the belt line, you're on different colored materials. And the Waypoint branding is very different than our branding. I mean, it is meant to be a separate identity for that restaurant. So that, I mean, there was some thought into the location being different and being higher and lower within that space. And in fact, talked about, that's why I said, ideally, we wanted them physically separated, but that's.
I think it'll be an issue for us, and I'd actually recommend something more like your ground sign, you know, where you've got a band with one name on and then the other identification. Those are two different looks, but at least they're put in order and a semblance of location, I think. So I just think it
I don't
needs to have
want to,
another
I mean,
option.
I obviously don't have any authority to argue, but I'm going to say that you have different branding on the Southtown faces, and that is exactly what we're trying to do here.
But they're
is
in a strip, and
two
they're.
separate brandings, and they're very different in their presentation. So,
That part I can agree with,
Okay.
but it's the location, I think, is the issue.
You know what might help a lot is if your sign designer gave us a building elevation with both of the signs on it.
See, we didn't do waypoint signs, so that's why we've been limited in what we present from but we can go back and get their graphic.
Oh, is it a different sign company?
It is, yes. As part of our landlord agreement with Waypoint, they're allowed to use their own sign company.
I would ask that we could see a presentation with them together so we kind of had the full picture, and maybe that'll support your argument better,
Okay.
if we can see them.
What is above, I'm looking at sheet WS1, and the trace to sign is there. What is a
That's a roof deck, Gary.
roof deck?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's,
So, I mean, we talked about actually putting it on the back part of the roof deck, but we didn't feel it would, we felt those planes were too despairing, that it wouldn't look right back there.
That's quite a ways back,
Right.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
but the plane that's in brown and the dark gray are the same plane,
They
correct?
are, correct.
And I trust Waypoint understands that they're putting a sign panel up that's the same color as the siding, or are they not? But they are presented as such here.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, like I said, I have not had design input into the Waypoint sign.
I'll close with this. The trace to sign looks really cool and is really well located, and I really like it. And the Waypoint sign, it all falls apart.
Yeah.
as a
I think it's
presentation.
actually, that may be the, I mean, we really like, that's the other part of it, is we really like the Tresta on that silver metal or the gray
Yeah, very
panel.
cool,
It
very
looks nice there.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, the other option is to bring the Waypoint down.
But if it's the same color on that background, that's not gonna,
You
It'll just wash
you need a
out.
more accurate representation for yourself as well as for us, I believe.
Ryan?
the only other concern I had is regarding the ground sign, the amount of content on there. And I'm trying to remember back some of the other ground signs that we've had, of the amount of content on there and what we're asking people to visually scan through. And if we have 4 tenants plus the main building name plus the waypoint, it's a lot of text. So I think a different rendering with the 4th on there might help me
We're
get a
very
better idea.
limited on the size that the sign can be. I mean, that's our biggest challenge in that corridor is, would I love to have the sign be taller? Absolutely. Or wider? Absolutely.
You'll get support by somebody on that.
I know, but that, I mean, that's, it, I didn't,
That's
my
the
intent
future.
wasn't to
Don't
come
bring
here
it
and
up
ask
for
for a
this.
bigger sign. My
We
intent
won't
was
approve it
really
for
to come
this.
and try to
That's gotta
fit
be
as
written
what
in
we
our
could
code.
within
It's
your
a
current
rewrite.
Gotta happen pretty
ordinance.
soon,
Yeah,
so
but not
these
at
people
this
don't
time.
keep getting stuck with it.
Since there
Okay.
are a few other issues, I think I'll just leave it at that.
Well, we've got some concerns being expressed. What's the, do we want a motion? Do we want to ask the applicant to come back to digest what we've shared? Any comments from Mr. Humbert?
Good-looking sign package, and I agree with staff recommendation.
Okay.
Well, I think they need to be resubmitted. We're looking at a landscape ground sign here that's not accurately represented. If it has 4 tenants in line, we're only seeing 3, so that would need to be redone. And from what I hear, we would need some other landscaping on that sign, and the sheet WS1. I think we're asking for some options there and
And then to
something
show,
additional.
and then to show the one elevation with both sides in accurate color?
Yeah, more accurate representation as far as color and size goes, because I just think it's going to look really odd. And then noticing, at least on different pages, that the sign color is the same as the building siding, which it really isn't, because it's not this orange,
Right.
you know, but,
We always had trouble with the color representation at this committee.
Yeah.
It's hard to represent that color.
yeah. So, yeah, revisions of what faces the belt line and the ground sign on Broadway would be very helpful for us. And like I say, I think for yourself, to understand exactly what you're going to end up with.
So if that's the desire, is there a motion to table?
I motion to table with
Sorry, if
the
you-
applicant coming back with those revisions.
Is there a second?
Second.
No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? See you in a couple weeks, Robin. Thank you. Okay, move on to 6D, consideration of action on request by Jim Andrews, building owner, and Anthony Harper, tenant, Legacy Martial Arts, for approval of 2 wall sign permits for the building at 6203 Monona Drive. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Jim Andrews, the owner of the building. It's owned by Sierra Development. I've owned the building since 1978. I want to refresh everybody's memory here a little bit on the signage that we talk about, the sign being centered in the building. Originally, the building was built as 2 different sections, okay? There was Central Appliance Service located on the south side. On the north side was a carpet company. He had his individual sign there. What we're trying to accomplish now is to hide as much as I call it tin, okay, and leave the brick exposed and put the signage back to where it was originally. And I would hope that the city looks at that favorably, because I like the brick more than I like the centering signs on over the brick.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Jim?
Yes, Sonia and Al Huddleston, the gentleman who designed the signs, had spoken, and the size that's on the submission is actually smaller than what was recommended. They're suggesting we go with 3.5 by 8 feet, which would give a larger graphic for the signage itself. So it's going to be essentially the same size as what is there, just adding a couple more inches to length.
So rather than 7 feet, it's 3.5 by 8 feet
Right.
is what you're requesting.
3.5 by 8 feet, correct.
Both signs?
Yes, sir.
Your time would be, excuse me, I'm Ken.
Yeah, why don't you come on up?
I didn't know, Al was said that he had talked with somebody from the city, and they were concerned about us being visible, because we're set back so far, that the sign would not be visible enough for people driving down Monona Drive. So somebody suggested that we won't go to a bigger sign. Now, I don't know what Mr. Andrews is going to do with his size, if both of them have to be compatible, or how that would work. I don't know how.
I would be happy to move in that direction.
You would be happy to move in that direction. We want to make sure that people are able to read the sign going down Monona Drive, than to just sit there and squint and see what, what is it? Is it, so we just want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not to correct. I don't know why, I don't know if Al sent you or sent anybody or who he was talking to about going to a bigger sign than what's visible there.
No, he only submitted this one.
He only submitted that? I know he had talked to me, he emailed me or earlier in the week and says, well, the concern was to go to a bigger sign so they could be read from Monona Drive.
And he would be here tonight, other than he had a prior commitment and could not
He's
break
sick.
that.
He was, yeah. So,
It's Ken and Anthony, or Ken
Yes.
and Anthony?
Ken,
Right.
Anthony.
So we got you here, so
Yes, sir.
okay.
you had registered to speak, so.
Yes.
Anybody else want to share anything this evening? If not, why don't we move to Sonia?
Some concerns listed in the staff report. The first one was in regard to the building characteristics, which you guys talked about, the brick versus the tin areas. And the second issue was concern of legibility and visual clarity, more so related to the different sizes and types of fonts on the sign and the very small logo, and a lot of information on the sign in one small space.
Are you referring to both signs or one in particular?
I think there's a lot of information on both of them. The Legacy Martial Arts Center appears to have different size type for each word, and the logo is very small. I think the logo on Sierra is also small, but
Okay. Thank you. Commission members? Sharon?
I have several comments. I have no problem with the two locations rather than the one central. I think that's fine. What I do like about them is the consistent size that you're talking about from both sides. I think that will help unify the building a little bit. You've got consistent sign color, consistent lettering colors and things, and I think that helps make it more striking and easier to read as you go past. They're both built the same method. But I do have some concerns in how readable they might be, that being said. I do think the logos are very hard to read on both of these, so I don't know if you're thinking of maybe also adding some vinyl lettering to the entry door itself, but I wonder if that might be a better place to try to put the logos and then reinforce, the names, something like that, because I think they're hard to read on these signs. One thing that we can't see here, we don't have any description of what the letter sizes are, so it's hard to comment back for you on what we think might be legible. On the martial arts, for example, maybe it's clearer and you can decide if you want to do this or not, just to say Legacy Martial Arts. I don't know if it's important for you to say center, but again, depending on the lettering size, that center looks like it's really squished down there.
I agree with you. Yes.
And so maybe they can all be moved up and more consistent in size, or maybe drop that portion of it.
Like the word
Again, I don't
center
mean
and-
to change your naming, certainly. On the appliance and TV service one, the Sierra and whatever that is that's listed underneath Sierra, I cannot read.
We can take
Is that what it is? That's really hard, really hard to see. So I think they might just need a little bit more reorganization, and maybe if we, again, knew what the letter sizes were, if those were calculated out, we could comment back that, yeah, that's going to work or not.
I noticed too on the plane, it doesn't show that they're equal, but they would be equal.
I understood that, yeah, I think that's good. So I don't know what other commissioners think.
Mr. Ganser, any comments?
It's a rough night for signs.
Pardon me?
It's a rough night for signs.
That's fine.
I apologize in advance.
Uh-oh.
Well, there's a couple things. One is, you said the intent of the ordinance as it relates to architecture is that you work within signable areas which are defined as like a similar material or a space designed for signs. In the case of Legacy, you're spanning, you've got two metal panels and then you're spanning over a recessed panel. So that is just, by any municipality's ordinance, something that doesn't fly. I mean, you're crossing over two different types of architectural materials. And that is the epitome of what a signable area is not. You were talking about making the signs 8 feet. The metal panel on the left of the building is 7 feet 4 inches wide. So if you center it in there, you'll probably be hanging off the edge of the building a couple inches. All right, so that's not going to work. So I am really going to encourage you that as much as you don't want to cover up the brick, and I can appreciate that concern, that space over the door is your defined signable area by any ordinance. And so I'm going to be encouraging you to utilize that space. And in doing that, that space is 17 feet wide. So 2 8-foot signs are going to get stuffed in there, and I would recommend that they actually come down a little bit. And with an improved sign composition that's been mentioned, the readability can be fine if properly designed and composed, which would require maybe a little less information on them. I might add, as we describe architecture, that references colors, and I'm struggling with black, white, and red on a brown building, but that's not referenced in the ordinance. So I'm just suggesting that the color scheme is quite inconsistent with the architecture.
Brian?
The major concern I had was I saw the center part as well as the signable area. I understand, or I appreciate wanting to be able to have them separated to indicate that there are two businesses in one single entrance, but I agree that that center portion is really, I think, the intended area based on the architecture of the building. I agree with the comments regarding the color selection and the amount of information on the sign that might want to be reconsidered.
Okay, reconsideration on the color, would it make a difference if it was a white background with black lettering rather than the black background with white lettering? Would that satisfy that concern?
Well, I think,
Well, the red is the biggest problem, so I don't know.
well, it's the red on a brown building with different colored tin. I mean, we're adding multiple.
Okay, if the tin were replaced with a facade of brick, would that address that concern?
In regards to having signs on either end?
Correct. Just
I
looking
think
for,
that would-
just looking for alternatives to
Mhm,
make this happen.
I think if it was a all brick facade, that would make a difference,
Okay.
personally.
It would take care of the issue of
You're not overlapping
crossing
materials.
Right.
two materials.
Signs just got more expensive, though.
A lot.
I would agree with the designated signage area. To me, is very clear. Overlapping materials, I don't think is a good idea. The idea of actually staying the 7.5 or a smaller sign that's reconfigured a little bit better. The logo's going to be ineligible. You're not going to be able to read that from the road. I think with just some restructuring of both signs, you could still achieve a more readable sign that's going to convey the businesses a lot better in a smaller package that's just designed a little bit more efficiently, I think.
Okay, backing up to the comment about the vinyl lettering on the door, I don't want to do something on a single door because there are two businesses there.
Well, but there's
What do I
two,
need to
there's
do to
two,
put vinyl lettering on the windows for either side as far as like the actual logo.
right,
So Jim could have Sierra over one window on his, and are we talking, does it have to be like a see-through, like a car window tint, or can it be an actual solid vinyl? What are the regulations that you're looking at for something like that?
It has to be on the inside of the window, and
Okay.
it is maximum of 50% of the window area.
Window area or the window that it's in? Because like the windows for the martial arts school, there's 3 windows, but they've got a divider between them, so it would be the full,
The full window.
okay.
Yeah.
there are some side lights on the door if you just wanted a modest-sized logo on, 2 different logos on either side of the door would draw people to the door, knowing that that's the entrance for it.
Will that
Just
be
something to
readable?
chew on.
Excuse me, would that
Yep.
be readable from the road, or?
The logo is not going to be readable from the road, but the sign is. When they come to the door, they're going to want to know where to go in, and it'll be obvious that there's 2 logos there by that door. And I'm looking for that logo, or I'm looking for that logo, and that's the door I'm going to use.
Okay.
But the logo is not going to be, the Legacy Martial Arts from the road without the logo would be easier to read. And
Oh, okay.
and I don't know with Sierra, if it's the name Sierra or Appliance and TV Service, what it would be most important to you. But
Logo identification is important as well as the.
yeah. And the other option would be not to put it next to the door, but to put it on the window and blow it up.
Okay, now you had commented earlier also about the difference in fonts. Is there a regulation that we need to follow same size font for both half of the buildings in this?
Same style.
Same style? I mean, so if one
Right.
has serifs, the other one has to have serifs as well?
It's the mix of font types that,
Okay.
you can have a 3-inch and a 2-inch stacked. They can be different size. But one of the things that we can't see from here, I think Sharon may have brought it up, we don't know how big these letters are. When you were here at the earlier discussion, there was a concern that you're not going, that the owner might not be happy with it when, letters are this big on Broadway and nobody can see them.
Right.
So I think to show how large they are, but if you're using a certain font type, be consistent and don't mix them. Is that agreed?
They said that was all right for us.
Any other comments from the commission?
Make it more than 50%. Right.
Am I reading that we would like to have another chance to meet these gentlemen?
I wouldn't.
You would?
Yeah.
Comments from Mr. Homburg?
He agrees that they could use a little more work.
Okay. So is there a motion?
Move to table.
Second.
Second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Yes, sir, indeed. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Moving on to 6E, review of zoning map and discussion of future land use map for comprehensive plan. Sonia.
So I wanted to raise 2 issues that have come up. The first is the fact that our existing comprehensive plan does not have a future land use map, and that's a requirement of the comprehensive planning statute. And it's also really the point of a comprehensive plan. A future land use map is a visual representation of your entire plan. So it really is an important part of the plan. It also helps when we're reviewing other plans in the future, like redevelopment areas or a parks and open space plan, to be able to compare something to really ensure that there is consistency. So that's the first part. And the second part is a review of the zoning map. And I think this is necessary for 3 reasons. One is we haven't done it in a while the code actually requires that we do it on an annual basis. 2, the statute requires consistency between your zoning map and your future land use map that we don't have. So that's required by 2010, and actions taken after that point are subject to legal challenge if there are inconsistencies. And then third, I think that there are some inconsistencies that I'd actually at least like to discuss, and then we can determine if everyone agrees that they're a problem and what the best way to remedy them would be. So one example included in the plan was in the North Monona Drive redevelopment area. And I'm,
So now go ahead.
yeah, we could. So on the left, as we're viewing it, the red parcels are zoned retail business. And on the right side of the screen, it says that the future land use map is mixed use commercial and or residential. So the land use being or residential would communicate that a single parcel could be a residential use, while the retail business zoning only allows residential as an ancillary or a secondary use, not as its own standalone residential use. So to me, that's an inconsistency that would need to be discussed. Going back to the first section, I skipped over an example of what we could do to go through the future land use map on the second page, Rob. So I have a logical step one would be to start with what we have. We can use our existing land use map and do an existing zoning or build out analysis. So consider what our zoning today would allow if all of the parcels were to be fully built out. So if you take the photos and the examples, the existing land use map under A shows single family parcels, and then the zoning allows retail business. So if those single family homes were torn down, they would not be allowed to be rebuilt as single family. They would need to be retail business uses. So on our future land use map, we would logically go with commercial or mixed use if that's in a different land use plan. So that's kind of a simplified version, at least wanting to raise the issues and open it for discussion, and what you might think an appropriate process would be to review it.
Let me ask a really dumb question. The difference between future land use,
I was going to ask a dumb question.
between existing land use, or future land use plan and existing zoning, why would they ever be inconsistent?
You can use your comprehensive plan and your future land use plan to show what is desired, and then in your plan you could recommend changes to zoning. So the future land use map is policy, and it's a guide, and it's used to show what you want and where the direction of the community is going 20 years into the future. Your zoning map and your zoning code are your actual tools to regulate those things.
So the land use plan is a wish list on where we would like to see development occur, or, okay.
So, in this example, if those single-family residential were to be torn down, would they be go across to rezoning that area?
So in this example, they already are zoned.
What's that?
In this example, they already are zoned for retail business.
Oh, okay.
If in our future land use map we said, no, we want those parcels to the future land use, we want to see industrial there, just an example, then we would need to go back and rezone for the zoning to be appropriate with our land use goal.
Okay, that would be reflected in our future land use map.
So would it be fair to say that we've been utilizing our zoning map as our way to determine our future land use, and this is encouraging folks to recognize that future land use is one item, and your zoning is a tool to get there, and it might change along the way to make sure that you're able to do all the things you need to do.
Yeah, I think the first part of what you were saying was correct, that I think in practice we've really been using our zoning map as our future land use map. And I did list in here that one goal in doing your future land use map, a reasonable goal is that you want to minimize changes to zoning. So I would imagine that we'd end up with something pretty similar to what our zoning map says.
Or we come up with recommendations on changing zoning,
Right.
which is Pat shaking his head, yeah.
One or the other.
So what would be the most efficient way to do this? To obviously start with have the comprehensive plan and our existing land use map, and then have recommendations from staff, or do you want to have it be a workshop here, where we just roll up our sleeves one night and on a light agenda and just do it here?
It could be, yeah, it could be whichever you prefer. I think really the easiest way is to have a subgroup sit down and go through it all, if there are people that are willing, because questions will come up for different parcels. There might be some confusion. It's difficult to do that in this kind of a format.
By subgroup, do you mean you and Pat?
No, I mean appointed.
Very small
Appointed
appointed.
commissioners.
Appointed, yeah. Let's not use the word appointed, okay? I think Hortonville's got a really cool map.
Just like the looks of it. That's all.
That's the lines are like
Nice colors.
dimensional. Yeah.
I like the idea of a small work group coming up with the first round, bringing it back to this as a presentation.
We've
I moved
got
the
a lot of
table.
members missing tonight, and,
So they get,
well, that was the first thought, but the second thought was if you could
Sure,
send
wants
out
to say
a
something.
notice to everybody asking for folks that would like to be a participant in the subgroup to step up and let us know. How many do you think total? 2 members from outside of staff? Okay,
2 or 3 would be good.
okay.
Is there a projected deadline for this?
Well,
or-
if you need 3, I would recommend
You just-
Chris and Griff.
Dennis.
All in favor? Aye.
Does that,
That's all I needed for tonight.
okay. Thank you. 7A, staff report regarding status of development project proposals. Sonia.
The next meeting is March 9th, and Royal Capital Group and the White Horses will be on that agenda, requesting approval of a general development plan. We might also have some signage coming back.
Yes, we will. Okay.
Right now, I think that's it.
7B, Plan Commission request for information concerning development projects. Nothing? Trista is moving along. Did everybody get a picture of the flyover?
Yeah.
That was cool.
That was cool.
Except they're advertising that move-in ready on April 1st. Do you need drywall? Move in?
That's Pat. Okay, seeing none, adjournment, we have a motion?
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I brought this up away from the meeting, but and I don't know if this is the time to bring it up or not, but I think I emphasize again that we really need to look at the sign ordinance, and particularly its height. I think that is, I have problems with it aesthetically, functionally, and in every other way, the 5-foot limit. And I'm not sure how we go about doing that. But I'd be that subcommittee of 1 to make that decision. So I'm asking, how do we address an ordinance?
It's on the list of things to do.
It is, it's been on the list for at least 5 years to redo
Yeah,
that.
so it is it's
longer.
a priority. Right now, the comprehensive plan is a really big priority too, and we've got a lot of development applications coming in, so I don't know, we could get something going sooner than later if you want, or we could wait until the comprehensive plan starts to wrap up a little bit.
I would say sooner. I believe it's a priority, especially when we have luxury apartments going in and following a restriction that I at least believe is inadequate.
if an applicant wanted to ask for a variance in the height, they can ask for that variance, correct?
They can.
We've never granted.
We've been very
We've
consistent.
never granted one. One could ask, and is there more than the height of the landscape ground sign that's of immediate concern or more immediate concern?
Not for me, other than maybe some inconsistencies like we discussed before
There are
the
a
meeting.
lot of
There are
issues.
There are some inconsistencies in the language between districts and so on. I just, but my priority, what I believe to be a priority for the businesses in the community is the 5 feet. And I think aesthetically, it's a problem. And functionally, they need to get that information on the sign, and then we're requiring landscape around it, and you can't landscape around the sign, you gotta go all the way to the ground in order to get the information on. I mean, it's a problem. So, anyways, I never know when, or how to go about that, so I just wanted to bring it up, officially bring it up.
Thank you.
It's another subcommittee.
Another subcommittee? Something we can discuss? Is that a good idea? So far we've got one member. We only need one more from the.
I
Remember,
think one is perfect. My favorite kind of subcommittee is the one I'm the only one on. I've already experienced the wayfinding subcommittee.
That worked out.
Is it possible for someone to bring forward ideas to staff regarding some of the changes that
I think
could be sought? It doesn't mean
I
that.
think we just got 2 members of the subcommittee.
Sure.
thanks for volunteering, you two guys.
And if you, I mean, do you have,
Not-
I'll do that one, then
Pat?
then we definitely don't have to do the other one.
Years with sign orders, I'd like to, maybe if we just could bring in different communities and to this group or to this body here and make a recommendation for the communities where it works and haven't had issues. Would be a good start.
I mean, like sort of identify existing
Case study.
ordinances that are out there that are, we could model ourselves after.
Signs that sort of model, Monona's modeled their signs similar to, I would think, the
Rather than a
monument
subcommittee?
Huh?
Rather than a subcommittee typically?
No, I think either or, but I think if you start with it might be easier just to flush this one and start fresh.
It was actually something we were going to look at when Monona Drive was redone, because the concern had come up, and some of the discussions at the time were keeping the 5-foot sign, but letting everybody put a different base size down below, just because the 5-foot has been enforced for so many years. You know, how do we go back now and say, hey, guess what, everybody, we decided on 6 foot, so you can all get rid of that. I mean, it's been really
What you're saying
adamant on the
is-
5-foot.
Is give a base so that they
Right.
could use it.
Allow
And then if somebody wanted to go in and retrofit it, they could add a base to it.
Or something, yeah, to allow plantings or whatever, but it's rare that we have as many tenants on the signs as we've seen tonight.
I'm confused. So you're saying not change the 5 feet?
That was discussed at one time, because there are so many 5-foot signs existing. And the city's been so adamant for, I don't know how many years, at least 20 years that I'm aware of, that everything has to be 5 foot. If it was 5'3", it had to be 5 foot. So there was discussion, as Monona Drive was being redone, that maybe we allow a taller base and then the sign put on top, so some people could go back and retrofit their
okay.
existing signs possibly,
All
or
right, so
something,
we,
you know, to go up to
we
6
say it's
or
6
whatever
feet
it was.
now, and if you want to raise your sign with a,
Base on a pad or something.
You know, if,
But just-
just, it was a thought that we had talked about once, but we've never done anything. You know, it's hard for
Why
the
don't we talk-
rationale to
we don't have
suddenly
decide
say, hey,
tonight,
we're
but
going to
maybe
change
give
this.
some
Well,
idea that either
yeah, but I mean, everybody can
Copy
go, everybody
something
can go
new
and
or-
change
I have a lot
their,
of
Well,
notes,
that's-
and I've been
anybody
just
can
waiting
raise
to
their
schedule
sign
it,
once
so
an ordinance
Okay.
is changed, and if it's,
Raise it, yes.
We'll get it going.
right.
Right.
And then
All right.
apparently McDonald's
But
doesn't
not
have to
everybody.
bring theirs down.
Sonia's concern.
long as that
for
been there.
time and
Yeah.
Yeah,
Number of hours
we-
in the day issue right now.
we got to get the comprehensive plan across Stone Plate. We had a motion for adjournment. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for having fun with signs tonight.
They'll be at
We
the
know
next.
it's coming here.
They're coming here.
You know, it's,
What's coming in?
Smith wants to go in sound.
of course, It's been a frustration. I have something.
Yeah, I don't know if they're dismantling the other stuff.
So impactful on the aesthetic.
Have you seen Royal Capitals?
Say respectfully, the majority of them being designed.
Thumbs up.
by people that have a clue,
In my opinion, it's
you know, and I don't know what to say when I'm sitting here.
Really a
These
lot of
signs.
reservation when I started on this.
Oh, so not much change.
Adamant. That was the
Um,
size.
Yeah, more details been added to the
Is there
plans,
anything
more
else
information,
that
more
wasn't that it was
documentation
rejected?
methods, but-
Yeah.
Did all the
It's just
pieces
like,
that
wow.
you guys had with them, did all of those get resolved or
Well,
no?
that's
They've added
not
sense
Sense to
good.
me because they had a huge lot.
Things that we've asked for, so we had just providing information to